In the last session, we were trying to see what are the different kind of quality control that we will be doing, and as part of that, we saw an overview of what is static code analysis, and we saw what is code analysis, and in that how you'll be using a tool like SonarQube, and overview of that. And then we also saw something called as code coverage, and what is the useful thing, what is the usefulness of that, and when we'll be using it as a project. And quickly, we saw by adding a particular plugin with respect to a tool through which you can incorporate the code coverage or the code analysis in your project through Maven. And we just saw a quick overview of different kind of testing that we'll be doing. So with that, now to move on, first let's understand how does the process of the build happens. So not just the build, but what happens after that. Now practically, if you take a scenario where there is a development happening, and in that development, now what will happen is, at first there will be a user or a developer who will be doing a change, correct? So as soon as he does a change, what he will do a unit test first, and after doing the unit test, he will try to do a commit. Now, like this, each user or different developers will be doing a commit separately. And now, in order to give it for QA, what we have to do is, we have to wait until all the developers have completed their work. Only then we can integrate everything together as a product, isn't it? Because now let's say if you have 10 developers, I cannot just take each commit and give it to the QA, because when they want to combine all these things, and then based on the latest commit ID that you're going to get, you will be trying to create a build and then give that to the user or to the QA. So that way, first level testing that the user will do is, he will run a build in his local workspace with respect to the component what he has changed, and he will verify and he will do a commit. But now when we are giving it to the QA, we need to create the complete product. So that is when whatever the build that the developer is going to do is basically called as a developer build. So whatever he does here, so in order to do all this unit testing, that we call it as a developer build. And when a developer does a build, it is only on his component, where whatever the component he has modified, or a module which he has modified, he will be testing only that and building only that. But when we are going to give it to the QA, we need to accumulate all the changes, and together we should be giving it to the QA as a product. So that way, now when will we be doing it? Because let's say this developer is finishing his work at 10 o'clock, okay, and he's doing a commit at 10 o'clock. This guy is doing a commit at 2 o'clock, and this guy does a commit at 2 o'clock. Like this, every one of them can be doing at a different point of time. But when you want to go to the QA, you need to accumulate everything, and then based on that latest change, you have to create a product. So that is on what will happen is, on a daily basis, they will be setting up a time at which they will integrate all the changes that has happened throughout the day, and based on that, they will be doing a build. So let's say every day at some particular time, like 5 o'clock in the evening, or 4 o'clock in the evening, or 6 o'clock, pretty much depending on a time, they will say that this is the cutoff period where we will try to accumulate all the changes that has been done throughout the day, and we'll take all the latest changes, that is the latest commit ID, and based on that, we will create a product. So from that level, the first thing is at a cutoff period. Cutoff time means at some particular point of time. So where you will make sure that all the users have completed their work, and at that day, whatever has been done, you will take it. So that way, now you will take or integrate all the changes that has been done on that day, okay, and then from this we will do a build. And now when we are doing a build, we are not just going to build only one component or two components like a developer, but we will be creating the complete product. So that is how this build that we do which we have to give it to the QA is basically a full product build, or simply we call it as a full build. Full build means you're creating the complete product. Okay, sometimes these are also called as nightly builds. Why do we call it as nightly? Because usually you will be doing this step at the end of the day after every developer has completed their work. We will accumulate all the change, and based on that we will be creating. So that's why we call it as a nightly build. So now by doing this full product build, whatever the deliverables that you will be getting, then that will be passed on to the QA. Okay, so after you do this, you will take it, and then further QA will be taking the product and they will be testing it. So whatever functional test they want to do, they will be doing a testing. Okay, so like this cycle keeps happening every day, where sometimes they might do this cutoff period once in a day, or they might be doing twice a day or thrice a day depending on the company. But the problem that happens in this is, now let's assume there is one developer who modified something at 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay, and only at the evening, along with all the other changes, you will be trying to integrate, and when you do a build, you will get some error because of his change that this guy has done at 10 o'clock. Now, after that you get a problem, maybe around 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock when you are running the build, you will find the issue, and then you have to sit and do a debug and triaging, which means that you need to find out what exactly caused the problem. So that is how you will go through each of the commit ID and try to find out which commit ID has caused the problem. And once you find out, you have to assign the bug back to the developer who caused the problem, saying that there is a problem in the build that is happening. Now, when you send it, it will be almost late in the night, and the developers will not be available, or it is not expected that they will be available because they have been there throughout the day. So that is how, in order to fix this, it will be reaching to the developer ideally only the next day. If not, he has to sit very late in the night, and you have to give him a call and let him know that there is something failing, and there's a lot of pressure involved in it. So that's how, if a person has done a small problem, even it could be a small change of code which is causing a problem, you are going to find it only at later point of time. Now, like this, when we try to find and he tries to fix, let's say that it takes one more day, and in case if it is not being submitted by the next day, then there will be still, everything will be failing because his change is going to be completely available. So that is how, what we have to do is, first we need to change a process in such a way that rather than the developers waiting until the end of the day to find out whether something is happening, they want a better process where as soon as they do the commit, they should be able to get the report whether everything is fine or not. So what is that we can do? So such a kind of process improvement is what we are going to bring through DevOps. In that, particularly focusing about this, there is a process that we introduce which is called as continuous integration. Okay, so what does the continuous integration say, or how different is it from this methodology? So now, what continuous integration says is, as the name represents, continuously integrate. Now, instead of waiting for accumulating all the changes at the end of the day, what we can do is, as soon as the developer does a commit, at that point of time, that is, as soon as the developer does a commit, immediately at that point of time, what we can do is, we can go ahead and do a integration, which means with his current change, whatever the other changes are there, you can take it and integrate the current change. So that way you will be having all the changes that is available, because already you have everything. On top of that, whatever that user does, you will integrate immediately, and then you will go ahead and do a build. And in case if there is any problem, you can try to detect at that level itself, and if everything is fine, then you can tell him that there is no problem. So like this, for every developer, when he does a commit, immediately you will be taking the change, integrate it with all the other change, and do a build, and verify whether his change is fine. Like this, you keep doing until you reach the cutoff period. So now exactly at the cutoff period, when you do a build, you will be having everything where if at all there was a problem, you were actually capturing it and you were sending it to the exact developer. So that way, now, as soon as a developer does a commit, for example, the same scenario at 10 o'clock, probably within the next 10 to 15 minutes, he will be getting the result whether it is working fine or not. So that is how he doesn't have to wait until the next day to fix a problem. So you can easily detect if there is any problem as soon as possible. But when I said the full product build, in the general case, it is going to take 2 to 3 hours or 4 hours depending on how big your project is. But in this scenario, we were talking that the build is going to take only around 10 to 15 minutes. That is what I said. So how exactly is it possible? Now, when you do a build, in the continuous integration concept, you are not actually going to do a complete build or a full build. So what you are going to do here is an incremental build. What do you mean by incremental build? Now, when you are trying to work, let's say in your project, you have 3 files. Okay, just an example. Okay, now for the first time when you create a workspace, in that workspace, if you try to compile, you will get what? One.class, and then corresponding to this, you will get two.class, and then corresponding to this, you will get three.class. And then when you try to create a package out of this, what will happen? All those this combined, you will be getting your deliverable of your project, right? Now let's say maybe you will get an output like a jar file. So now for the first time when you did a build, everything is available. Now let's say the next time when the developer at 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock does a check-in, that is another developer. Now what we can do is, if you see, the file that this developer has modified is only on 3.java. Okay, so that way when he does a commit, what is that which you don't have in this workspace? You already had everything based on the previous commit, but now there is one user who did a commit by modifying 3.java. So the only thing which is not available in your current workspace is 3.java. So you can reuse the same workspace, and in that, now the only file which has been modified is 3.java. So if you update this, what will happen? Very quickly, you will update the 3.java with the latest content what you had on this commit. Then, after this, when you do a build, now our build management system is smart enough to know that whether there is all the files needed to rebuild. But if you see, we already have all the files, out of which the only file which is modified is 3.java, and based on that, the only file which we have to compile is 3.class. And I can reuse this from the previous build, because whatever that we had for the new commit ID, only this file has been modified. So that is how from the previous build we can take these two files and you can reuse it. So that is how you are going to save the time in not building everything, or simply in building only those which has been modified. Okay, so that is how quickly you do something called as the incremental build, where on top of the existing one you will modify only the updated file, and then when you do a build, only corresponding files will be getting rebuilt and the package will be created very easily. So that is why when you do the continuous integration, you will actually be doing a incremental build, because of which you will be saving a lot of time. So that is why probably if your full build is going to take 3 hours, the continuous integration build, that is the incremental build, will take hardly 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Okay, so that's the advantage, where now As soon as the developer commits, by 10:15 it will be notified in case if there is a problem, so that he can go ahead and fix and make sure before the 6 o'clock time he will fix the code, and you can go ahead and take that, and when you do a full build there will be no problem, and then we can immediately give it to testing. The same way, for every check-in that happens you will be doing this rather than integrating. Now what will you do is, automatically every time when a developer commits, you will be doing the same concept where you will integrate all the latest changes and then you do an incremental build, and if there's something going to be wrong then you go back and refer to the developer, because this time there is going to be only one commit ID which you are updating. So even if it fails, it will be easy for you to track who exactly caused the problem. So that is another way where you will be reducing time in triaging or finding out the root cause of the problem. So that is how, by doing a continuous integration, the major benefit will be to the developers, where as soon as the change is done, immediately you integrate it and you try to do an incremental build by reusing all the previous object files, and then try to create the jar or the product. And this is not going to be given to the QA. It is only for the developers to find out there is a problem in their code or not. Okay, so such a kind of process is what we call it as continuous integration. So literally, if you see the actual statement of what is continuous integration is a development practice where for every check-in or a commit that a user does, immediately you're going to integrate that change with the other changes that we have in your repository or workspace, and then you go ahead and do a build. And what kind of build you will be doing? You will be doing a incremental build, and by doing the incremental build you will be determining in case if there is a problem, and if it is a problem you will go back and refer the user that it is failing. So that is how continuous integration is done automatically for every change when a developer checks in. So the major advantage of continuous integration now, if you see, it is going to help us to determine if there is any kind of bug or a problem in our product as soon as possible, because we don't have to wait like the previous traditional method that we were using. So if a developer commits, immediately we will take it, integrate and do the build to verify everything is okay. Okay. Now, along with it, we don't need a separate integration step, because for each commit ID, you're going to integrate with the latest change and do that build. So that is how it is quite necessary, where we don't have to keep doing the integration step always. And if you look at this point of time in the automation in IT industry, we don't want to just focus of running the build and verifying. If I want, I can also do certain automation in terms of doing a automated testing, as well as if we want, we can put it into a production system and do a deployment. So that can also be done using the continuous integration process. So majorly, by doing all those things, we will have a complete history on what happened, why it happened, who exactly did this. All those details can be tracked. Okay, so that is how to implement continuous integration as a process. We have various tools available in the market. Okay, where at this point of time, we are not just focusing only on doing a continuous integration where it will do a build, but practically it can do various things where you are going to start a process every time when a developer does a commit, in which you will take the change and integrate it with all the other changes and go ahead and do a build. If needed, you can do a testing, that is an automated testing, and finally, if you want, we can deploy it into a particular production system or any other staging area which will be used by the QA to test it. Okay, so that's how continuous integration is going to help us. Getting it? What is continuous integration, first of all? Any questions or doubts on an overview of what is continuous integration? Vinay, Nagesh, Kavya, Karnakar, Hari. So did you understand this process, Nagesh? What I was trying to explain? What is the problem that you are going to face in this?
Yes, like definition and all. Just 1 second. Can you repeat again?
Nagesh, your voice is not audible. Can you be a little loud?
Yes, can you repeat again the continuous integration definition and all?
Hello?
Hello?
Your voice, I'm not sure if there's a problem.
Okay, then I can send message.
Okay. Okay, so to understand the definition, first, did you understand this process? That is what I'm asking. So now, instead of waiting until end of the day to accumulate all the change and then create a product and give it to the QA, so if there is a problem, it is going to take a lot of time to identify. But what we are going to do, continuous integration means, simply it means for every commit a developer does, immediately you integrate all the changes and then do a build so that you can immediately find out whether there is a problem or not for every commit a user does. So that is how the definition is. Continuous integration is a process where for every commit a user does, immediately you are going to integrate that changes with all the latest changes in the repository, and then you are going to do a build to verify whether that commit has a problem or not. So such a kind of process is what we call it as a continuous integration. Getting it? So now, when you say that you have to do this process where as soon as a developer does a commit, immediately you have to integrate and then do a build. So now, if you take continuous integration as a process, it has various phases. So the first thing that we will be having is you will have a repository, right? So this is where for a product we will be storing the changes. So now, how do I know that there is a commit happening? So in order to know, what we have to do is on a particular repository, we have to keep monitoring and find out if there is a commit is going to happen or not. So that is how that process of monitoring a repository is what we call it as polling or poll. So polling or poll a SEM repository means you keep watching it periodically at an interval of time and find out whether there is a new commit that is happening. So that way, the very first thing that you will be doing is you will be monitoring or polling for new commit that is happening in the repository. So if there is a new commit that has happened, then you will continue with the process where you will go ahead and integrate the change, okay, and then further you will do the actual build, wherein in this build, based on our requirement, I can do a compilation, or I can do a testing, I can do a packaging, or I can do a deploy. So whatever is needed, we can do all the steps. And further, as what we saw last time, if needed, we can do a code coverage in this, or you can do a code analysis. So all those things can be done because this is the complete build step, where how it is going to work is, now if I have a central repository in Git, we have to keep monitoring it, that is keep polling for new data. So as soon as a new commit is done, immediately you take that, and in your workspace wherever that you are using, you will update everything, that is git pull. You will do a git pull and update your workspace. That is what we call it as integration here. And then with respect to that, whatever the build tool that you are using like Maven, you will call it, so that immediately you can think about building a particular component or however the changed file is. Based on that, you will do the build and verify if there is a problem, and in case if there is a problem, you will go back and report to the person who has done the commit. Okay, so this will happen for every commit that is done. But in order to do this, what is that we have to do? So when I say poll, you have to go to the central repository and check whether there is a new change happening or not. Now, when I say go and check, you need to specify a time. Based on that, we will be able to poll or check on the repository. So that's how polling happens at an interval of time. So let's say I say every 10 minutes you go and poll to the central repository. So that is how it will go once in 10 minutes and see at that point of time or between that 10 minutes there is a new commit happening. In case if it happens, it will go ahead with the step. Suppose at that 10th minute when it is checking and it doesn't find any change or any new commit ID, then it doesn't have to do anything, because there is no new commit ID. It doesn't have to do anything. But if there is a new commit ID submitted by some user, you will update that in your workspace and do the build on that workspace. And what kind of build? You will be doing a incremental build. Okay, so this is what exactly happens in the continuous integration. So now, to do this continuous integration, we can write some kind of small script, or we can write our own tool or a program to achieve. But to help us to do automation in a better way, there are tools available in the market which will help us to do the continuous integration. So one such tool that we will be using for automation as well as the continuous integration is what we call it as Jenkins. Okay, so Jenkins is a configuration management tool which will help us to do the automation. Okay, but the tool called Jenkins has been improved in such a way where we are not just going to use Jenkins only for doing a continuous integration, but any other task that you want to do, you can do. So basically, Jenkins is going to just act as a web page in which you will just tell to the Jenkins what and all you want to do and on which machine you want to do a task. So whatever that we are trying to do manually, we will give that itself to the Jenkins. So Jenkins will automatically connect to whatever machine you have specified, and in that machine, whatever task you wanted to run, it will run that task also. So that is how Jenkins at this point of time in the development or in terms of DevOps, it's going to be an important tool where you can run all those things which you are doing manually using Jenkins. You can automate where if you tell this is the machine and these are the tasks you want to do, so practically it will connect to all those machines and run the task whatever you want to do automatically. Okay, so that's the necessity, and that is why Jenkins is so popular. And Jenkins is also quite flexible, because when I said Jenkins is actually a web page, in that it is actually a framework. So when I say framework, it is going to give you a template by default, out of which you can add what options you want, so that Jenkins will be exactly behaving based on what you have given in the template. So if you want to do a particular task, you use that template and you tell whatever that you want to do by configuring some data, and Jenkins will be exactly behaving in that way. Okay, so that is how now you can configure the Jenkins in based on any way that you need, and accordingly Jenkins will be running. So that is how Jenkins is quite highly configurable, and it is very flexible. It is not like Everyone has to use it in the same way. If you want, you can use the framework and give an option. Based on that, Jenkins will be running. And if someone else gives some other option, again it will run based on each one of us what we have given. And in addition, just like how we saw in Maven, we have plugins. So what is plugin? Plugin is nothing but a tool or a command which internally a particular Maven or Jenkins is going to use, using which you will be able to perform some specific task. So that way, if you're going to use Jenkins to do some specific task, once again, just like Maven, we also have plugins related to Jenkins itself. So you install that plugin, then correspondingly, you will be getting all the options in the web page or in the framework through which you can choose what you want to do. So that is how, like this, any tool that you want to connect to Jenkins, you have pretty much all the plugins available. Through the UI, you can easily add the values and run whatever that you want to run as a task in Jenkins. So that way, now there are plenty of plugins. There are tons of plugins that is available in Jenkins. So whatever command that you want to do or whatever task you want to do, simply use that plugin, and correspondingly, if you fill the data, Jenkins will automatically run it whenever we want. So that is the major advantage why Jenkins is so popular, and it is being used by the developer, QA, or a release manager or a documentation manager. Anyone, if he wants to do any automation, rather than he doing it manually by connecting to a machine, he can easily tell to the Jenkins that this is what you do and this is the machine on which you want to do, and basically Jenkins will do everything for him at that particular time when they want to run. Okay, so that's why Jenkins is a popular continuous integration tool as well as a automation tool. Now, that is more from the normal user, but specifically, since we are going to be responsible for taking care of the Jenkins itself, now Jenkins can also be used as something called as a cron server replacement. What do you mean by a cron server replacement? Before that, what is a cron server? Now let's take a simple example in which we are trying to do a build for a project. Okay, and now when I want to do a build of a project, I want to do the build at a specific interval. So that way, now I want to do the build every 1 hour. Assume that is my necessity. How is that I'm going to do? One thing that I can do is I can run every 1 hour by connecting the machine manually and run the command whatever I need, so that it will be done at that time. If not, what we can do is we can tell to the operating system in terms of scheduling. So just like how you have in your mobile, you can schedule something and it will be giving you a reminder, right? In the same way, in the Linux machine, there is a utility called cron through which you can tell to the operating system or the machine when you want to run something. So that way, whatever command that you want to run or a build that you want to run, simply put as an entry into this cron, and you can tell that you run this exactly 1 hour. So automatically the operating system will try to run through the cron whatever that you have given every 1 hour. So like this, no matter how many tasks that you want to run, automatically at a point of time, you can use this cron. So basically cron is a scheduler which is used on the Linux machine, using which it will be running all the commands or tasks automatically. Okay, so that is what we will be using cron for. Now, as I said, when we are doing this operation work in DevOps, there will be many such things which we want to repetitively run on a daily basis. I want to do certain maintenance, I want to do certain backup, correct? So like this, there are many scripts or many tasks which you want to keep on running every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes or every 1 hour based on your requirement. So that way, now if you take one machine, on that machine you will be giving all these details on when you want to run on a cron. So that is how automatically when the time comes on based on what you have given, the machine will be taking the entry from the cron and it will be running it automatically. Okay, But the problem in this is, if something goes wrong in the machine and the machine is not up, then what will happen? All those cron that you have been scheduled to run at some time will not run. Correct? So then it is quite important for us now to keep monitoring this machine. So we have to keep on checking whether the machine is connecting, and in that machine, do we have all the jobs, that is the task which we have scheduled at different time, is it running? Everything is that we have to look. And in case if it is not connecting, then we have to set up one more machine, and in that machine you have to import all this cron that we have specified to run on this new machine and then start running it. So like this, things will take a long time to fix. So that is when, if you use Jenkins, we can use a concept where, rather than attaching everything to a machine, you can give the scheduling time to Jenkins, and Jenkins will try to connect to whatever machine that is available in your data center or what you have given to Jenkins, and based on that, Jenkins will connect to any one of the machine which is available and operate. So that is how it is going to be a replacement for our traditional cron server. So rather than we running everything directly on the machine, we will give all the details on what I have to run and when I have to run on a Jenkins, and that at that particular point of time, it will connect to whatever machine which is available in the Jenkins, and it will try to run the task on them. That is how, additionally, for our operational task, we will be using Jenkins as a replacement of cron server. Okay, so that is one of our major advantage. So now if you look, you can do pretty much anything, as Jenkins is just a framework. So if you want to do the build, you do the build, or if you want to do the testing, you can do the testing, or if you want to set the continuous integration process, you can set, where you will tell to Jenkins, this is the repository which you want to keep checking in every 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So based on that, it will connect to the repository and check for that regular interval if there is any change happened. In case if there is a change happened, then based on what steps you have given, it will perform all of them. So it can do a build, or it can do a deployment, it can run your source code analysis, or it can try to deploy the files into a different storage tool. Like this, whatever steps that you want to define for your build, you will give it to Jenkins and that will automatically run. Okay. So coming to the point now, how exactly Jenkins works. So to understand, Jenkins works on a client and a server architecture. Okay. Now, when you install Jenkins, whatever the installation that you have done is actually going to be called as the master instance of Jenkins. And there is only one installation of Jenkins. There is nothing called as client separately, but we'll tell you what exactly does it mean. But as of now, remember, when you say you are going to install Jenkins, on whatever machine you are installing Jenkins, that Jenkins will be treated as the master Jenkins for your project. Okay. And in the Jenkins, whatever that you have installed, in that basically you will be trying to give some details. So what kind of details you will be giving in Jenkins? So the first thing what you will do is, you need to tell on what task you want to do. Correct? Suppose you want to do some specific task, what exactly it is. So to tell a task, what we will do in Jenkins is, we will create something called as a job, where a job is nothing but a group of tasks which you want to do. So do you want to do a build, or do you want to connect to a machine and run some database, or do you want to do some backup, whatever that you want to do. So that you will be creating it as a job. So like this, Jenkins will be full of jobs which will be having specific tasks it has to do. Okay, so that way now in Jenkins you will be creating different jobs which will have the details on what Jenkins exactly has to do based on that task. Then you need to also tell for a particular job where exactly you want to run all the tasks. So like this, if you have a specific machine on which this job has to be run, then we will try to create a connection from the master Jenkins to these machines. And these machines are called as client or slave. So the reason why we use this is that when you are trying to set up a job, you will tell to the Jenkins that this particular job should be using a specific client or a machine. So in that way, if you tell what is the machine you want to run, and in that what and all you want to run, you will be giving it. So at any point of time when you are running that job through Jenkins, Jenkins will connect to that particular machine that you have defined, and in that machine it is going to take this task and run it exactly on that machine. Okay, so that is how you will specify something as a job, and inside that you will give all the tasks that you want to run, and then you will also specify where you want to run, that is the client or the slave. So automatically at any point Jenkins will connect to that machine, and in that machine it will be running all the tasks what you have given in the same order or one by one based on how you have given. Okay, so like this, for any machine that you want Jenkins to be connected, then you have to create it as a slave or client, and you tell it to the Jenkins. Okay, so that's how based on that time it will connect to a specific machine and it will be running the tasks what you have given. And to perform all these tasks, you might be requiring plugins. So that is how the framework what Jenkins is going to give is all about plugins. As you keep adding more and more plugins, it will be giving you more and more options to your workflow. Okay, so that you can set up that in the Jenkins, and based on that you can tell Jenkins to run a task in a particular way. So that is how, along with the jobs, you will also be defining on what and all are the plugins that you have to use. So basically when you install Jenkins, it comes up with the default set of plugin, and along with it, if you want to add more and more plugin for a specific necessity, then you will be trying to add a new plugin. Based on that, it will be showing you those particular options. Okay, so this is how Jenkins will be working. So now when you're trying to set up Jenkins, it's all about configuration. So that way, the first configuration that you will be doing in the Jenkins is you will be doing a global system configuration. That is, in this, you will tell to the Jenkins on what are the tools that you are going to run through Jenkins, and in that what kind of environment that you are going to use, or the environment variables. So all those which are needed for running your task or running your job, you will be specified under the global system configuration. And after this, you will be doing something called as a node configuration, where a node configuration or a slave configuration is something where you will tell what is the machine which you want to use for some particular purpose or a task. So that way, for each of the machine that is going to be used for connecting to a particular job and execute, now all of them has to be told to the Jenkins, only then it will know. So the next type of configuration that we have is node configuration, in which you will be telling the details about each of this node or the client which Jenkins will be using to connect whenever there is a necessity. Okay, so that is how the second type of configuration that we have is node configuration. And then you have something called as plugin configuration also. So if you want to do any specific activity, for that if you need a plugin, then you will go to the Jenkins master and install that particular plugin. Based on that, you will be getting additional options. Okay, and then finally what you're going to do is the job configuration. So now whatever tasks that you want to do, you will be actually doing it by creating different kinds of job. So if you want to simply connect to a machine, what you want to do, you set it up a job. If you want to create a continuous integration process, you create a job. So pretty much anything that you want to automate, now that we will be creating in terms of different configurations. So these things are one-time configuration, but for every user, for every requirement that we have for a particular user or other users, you will be creating a new job, wherein in the job you will tell using the plugin what and all you want to do. Based on that, Jenkins will be doing only that. Okay, getting it on what is Jenkins first and how the architecture works, and in that what and all we are supposed to do. Others? Kavya, Vinay, so what you need to understand now is, when you say Jenkins, Jenkins is a tool that you will be accessing through web page, and it is a framework. So when I say framework, you will be having some page in which it will give a certain option. Based on what you need, you will be choosing and telling the Jenkins what to do, and based on that you will tell what machine you want to connect and work, and accordingly Jenkins will be running everything. So that way you will configure on which machine you want to run, and then for doing a task what kind of plugins that you need you will specify, and then finally you will specify what is the exact task you want to do. Based on that, Jenkins will be doing it. Okay, and Jenkins is created using Java. So just like Maven, Jenkins also needs Java. So if you are going to install Jenkins on your machine or any other machine, make sure you have Java installed on your machine. So Java 1.7 or greater should be good for running Jenkins. Okay, so that's the only prerequisite where you need to have Java on your machine. So once again, remember, when you say installing Jenkins, it is only one installation, and that is what is going to act as a master. And from this, all you are going to do is give some details about different kind of machine, and only when it is needed for a particular job, Jenkins will automatically connect to this client or node or slave and run the task exactly on that machine. So Jenkins is going to act only as a handler. Okay, but in this there is one more concept now. For running any job, you need to tell what is the task it has to perform, and you also have to tell on which node or client it has to run the task, so that Jenkins will connect to that machine and run. But in case if you have not attached a particular node to a job, then what will happen is, when the Jenkins is trying to run, if it doesn't find any of the machine attached to it, then it is going to run on the same machine where you have installed Jenkins. Suppose if I have installed Jenkins on my laptop, and if I have not told where a particular job should be running, then automatically Jenkins will be running on my own laptop, that is on the same machine where you have installed Jenkins. Okay, remember, that is the default behavior. So for every job you have to specify where to run it. If you don't say, it will be running it automatically on the same machine. Okay, okay, so if you understand so far, now let's try to see how we are going to basically install Jenkins. So if you go to the Jenkins site, that is jenkins.io, and in that if you go to the download, now you'll get a page like this. Now in this, we have two kinds of releases. Okay, one is long-term support release, other one is weekly release. So for those who attended last session and to recall, yesterday I was talking about something called as a beta testing. Do you remember? What is a beta testing? Can anyone quickly try to tell? Or Karnakar, you might be using this word a lot. What do you mean by beta testing? Nagesh, we spoke about it yesterday. Recall it. So now, before doing an actual release, you would like to get the product tested, and for that, I said you might give that product to the customer or the end user or someone within an organization who will be testing equally as a customer, right? So such a kind of testing is what we call it as beta testing. So now whatever the packages or the weekly thing that you are seeing is a beta testing where every week the Jenkins community, because Jenkins is a open source tool, so there is a community who is going to create this Jenkins and update. So those guys every week will be updating a set of releases where we can try to take it and test it. That way, if we have any kind of bug, we can report it to them. Okay, so this release or this on the right hand side, whatever you are seeing is generally a beta tested package or the installation of Jenkins. So we are not interested in that because there might be some problem, and until we don't have a fix for it, it will not be working. So that is how always go with the long-term support release, that is on the left hand side. Now these are the ones which are actual ones which has all the bug which has been fixed and tested properly. Okay, so we are going to use this. So pretty much when you are installing, make sure you are installing only the long-term support Jenkins only. Okay, so that way now you choose whatever operating system that you want to install it. Now once again, since it is going to be a web page, you don't have to worry whether you are installing it on a Linux machine or a Windows machine for our testing. But it matters a lot when you're running in production. Why? In our testing, you will be just having one machine or two machine, or you will have simply one job or two job to test. But when you go to production, there will be hundreds of people and there will be thousands of job running. So for better performance and maintenance, we go with Linux. But if not, the way that you're going to access is going to be the same. The only difference is you are going to install it on a Windows machine or a Linux machine. So how you're going to install is the matter. Okay, so that way now in your laptop you can install Jenkins and work. The only thing that you need is you need Java on your machine. So that way, if you just go to the Windows and click, you will be getting a particular zip file. All you have to do is take that zip file and download it. Okay, and then if you extract, there will be exe which you install. Jenkins will be installed on your machine. So just say double click and then it will install. But while it is installing, it will actually walk you through certain steps. Okay, so you have to give certain values to it. Let me stop it. I don't want. Okay, now what happens is when you try to run the package, immediately it will be opening up a web page. Okay, and then it will ask you certain details. So just keep clicking next on where you have to install and it will complete the installation. Then while it is going through, at one stage it will show you a page like this or an option like this. So what it is going to show you is, now when I said Jenkins is completely going to work on plugins. So when you install Jenkins, you are going to get certain default set of plugins, correct? So in that way, it is going to ask you what are the plugins that you want to install along with the first time installation of plugin. So if you know that, you can choose. If not, by default, it is going to install a standard set of plugins which is needed for us. Okay, so that you can simply take and you can choose the option. So if you choose, immediately it will show you that these are the different plugins that it is going to install in our master Jenkins. Okay, and once it is installed, next what it will do is it will ask you for creating a user. Okay, so remember, when you are actually working on Jenkins on the latest version, you have to create an account. Only then it will ask you to go inside, because you have to be as an admin to create a user. So pretty much now create a username and give a password so that you remember every time when you connect to Jenkins, you will be using that username and password only. So that way, create everything and then proceed further. Okay, and when you are proceeding further, it will ask you for a password, not the password what you're seeing here, but it will ask you for the Jenkins whole password. Now that will be available in a file called initial admin password that comes along with the installation. So wherever you have installed Jenkins, in case if it is in Linux, you can see that file will be available inside a folder called secrets and initial admin command. The same thing if you are installing Jenkins on Windows, wherever you have installed Jenkins, if you go to that directory, you can see a folder called secrets, and in that you will be seeing a initial admin password. So usually Jenkins will be installed in C program files. So you can find out where Jenkins is installed. And inside this, you will find a secret folder. And in this, you can see a file called as initial admin password. Okay, so there will be a file. If you open this, it will be containing some password that you just have to give it in the page when it asks you. So that's the thing that you have to do. First, choose the plugin. If not, by default, it will choose all the plugin. And then second thing you have to do is give the username and password for logging in. And when you proceed, it will ask you for entering a initial admin password. So that you have to take it from that particular file under the secret folder where you have installed Jenkins. If it is Windows, usually it will be under C program files, and in that Jenkins folder, and inside that secrets, and try to take the content and try to give it. So once that is done, Jenkins will be installed. And in Windows, if you want to verify whether Jenkins is running or not, the first thing that you have to do is go to the services. So if you enter services.msc on your run prompt, that is, if you click the Windows button and R button, you will get this option. And in this, if you say services.msc, okay, once again, how do you get this? If you click the Windows button, that is on your keyboard, between the Control and the Alt button, you can see some small 4 boxes. That is called as Windows button. Okay, so if you press Windows button, and along with it, if you press the letter R together, both of them simultaneously, you will be getting this run prompt. In this, enter services.msc, and if you enter, you will be getting this option. This is nothing but all the processes or the services which the Windows machine is running. So in this, if you search for Jenkins, you can see that there is a service that is set up and currently it is running. Okay, so this ensures that we have installed Jenkins and it is running. Now, how do I access Jenkins? So to access Jenkins, you have to do, that is what you have to do. So if you go to a web page, and in the web page, you will say http:// the name of the machine where you have installed Jenkins. Okay, and then :8080, where 8080 is the port using which the machine is running Jenkins. So that way, on whatever machine that you have installed Jenkins, you will give http / that machine name :8080. Then you will be able to connect to Jenkins directly. Now, in my case, I have installed Jenkins on my own machine. So either I can give my machine name, or simply I can say http :/ localhost and :8080. So that way it will try to connect to Jenkins, which is running on our machine. So now if you go to the same page, and here if you say http :/ localhost :8080, and you should be getting a page like this. Okay, now so for the first time when you come to your Jenkins, you will be coming to a page like this. Okay, when you go to localhost 8080, this is what you will be getting, a page, okay, where there will be nothing. As you what you see now, this is what you will be seeing, where there is no configuration, there is no job, there is no node, nothing will be there. Wherein this page where you land whenever you connect to Jenkins is what we call it as a Jenkins home page. So this 8080 is what we call it as a Jenkins home page. Okay, and if you want to quickly know which version of Jenkins that you have installed, if you come down, you can see that here it will clearly tell you what is the version of Jenkins you have installed. Okay, so now once you have installed Jenkins, you will get this page. If you get this page, that means you have not, you didn't have any problem while installing Jenkins. So all you need to make sure is you need Java on your machine, and try to download the specific package in case it's Windows, and then when you install, you will be going through some steps where it will ask you where to install Jenkins. If you just keep clicking next, it will ask this option, and then it will ask you for entering the username and password, and then it will ask you to enter the initial admin password. That you can take it from the folder where you have installed Jenkins, secret folder, and this file called initial admin password. Okay, and then every time when you want to connect to Jenkins, you will say the machine name :8080. Or for our practice, since you are going to install Jenkins on your machine, you just say localhost :8080 and it will be connecting. And Jenkins is lightweight, so you don't have to worry whether it is going to cause any performance issue or not. Nothing will happen. Okay, clear so far? Any questions? Clear on what is this? So this is a web page, and in which we are going to create some configuration. Okay, so if you have understood this,
And
then
sir, one more thing. Hello. Hello.
yeah, Kavya.
For
Kavya, I'm sorry, actually, I think there's some problem. My machine. I'm not actually able to hear anything. Can you please type in the chat if you don't mind?
now,
No,
is
no,
it
no. It's
clear?
not a
Hello.
problem with you. There's some problem with my microphone. I think in my laptop, I'm not able to hear clearly. Can you please type? That will be easy. Okay, so Jenkins actually doesn't require a huge memory. Okay, as such, if you go here, you will have the complete details. But in terms of memory utilization, it's not huge. But what majorly depends is as you keep installing many plugins and many different jobs, it might need lot of space. But if you talk about space, it is only for storing everything, because whatever that you are installing in Jenkins, right, whatever that you are seeing here, everything that you modify, it will be getting stored as a file. So as such, you don't need much space for it. But as you keep storing many things and as you keep installing many things, then you might need more space and memory. But if not, a minimal of what you're going to have should be good enough. Even I'm not sure specifically on how much it is needed. Maybe I can check and let you know, but it's quite lightweight. That is what, as I said, so you don't need much details about it, so it is quite lightweight, so easily you can install. But as you keep running, depending on how much usage that you're doing, then you might need more space. But just for running, for all your practices for day to day, it is not going to take any space. It is very lightweight. Just like how if you have installed Git, it is very simple and easy. Even Jenkins is also going to be lightweight. But as we keep doing many things, you will be requiring to maintain the space. So I'll talk about it on how you have to maintain and what and all is needed for doing a performance maintenance in Jenkins later. As I said, for your day-to-day activity in the practicing, you can use it. It is quite lightweight. Okay. Okay. Now, coming back. So when you are going to work on Jenkins, these are the things that we have to do one by one. Okay. So first, probably today, we'll try to see the first thing on what and all are the global configuration that we have to do. And then we will see the plugin configuration. And tomorrow, we will try to see the other configuration. Okay. So first, let me walk you through the plugin configuration. So when you go to this manage in the Jenkins homepage, you can see an option called manage Jenkins. This is what we will be using always to create anything or to modify anything. So if you click on manage Jenkins, it is going to further give you a lot of options. In that, if you want to do the global configuration, you will be using it. Suppose if you want to give some accounts on who should be using and who should not be using, those details you can use through global security. And on the latest versions, additionally, okay, so you're talking about all these details, it will not be storing in the database, but wherever that you have installed Jenkins. Suppose in my machine, I have actually installed Jenkins in this location. Okay, so all that data that you are seeing, you are trying to seeing on the web page is actually getting it from here. So everything will be stored directly in this directory, not in any database. Whatever that you do, everything will get stored here. So I'll talk about that also on how it is getting stored. But for that, first we need to know how it is creating everything. So based on that, we will show. But for now, take it that whatever that you are seeing is based on what the contents that you have inside this Jenkins folder. Okay, and whatever that you modify there, everything will get stored here. Okay, so I'll talk about everything. Okay, don't worry. So now in the latest version of Jenkins, there is an additional option called tool configuration, because in earlier versions of Jenkins, along with the configure system, we were able to specify what and all tools we are going to use. But additionally, on the latest version, they have kept it as a separate option. So in this configuration, that is the configure system, you will give only the detail about what environment variables you want or what options that we have. But if you are trying to say any specific tool to be used, like I want to use Git from Jenkins, or I want to use Maven from Jenkins. So those kind of tool related configuration will be done in this. And if you want to modify or take care of the plugins, then you will use this manage plugins option. Okay, and then if you want to actually add a new node or modify a node or delete a node, then you will be using this manage nodes. So that way, if you go to the manage plugin, now you will be getting a page called plugin manager, using which you can manage the plugins that has been installed on your Jenkins. So in this, first you have a tab called available, where this tab will give you all the plugins that is available in the Jenkins open source market. Again, Jenkins is an open source tool, so all these plugins that you are seeing is basically available on the open source site. Okay, so that is how we can choose what plugin that we want and we can install it. Okay, so you can see now there are tons of plugins available. That is why people are trying to use Jenkins in a popular way, because whatever task you want to do, for each of the tasks there is one plugin. So all you have to do is just add some option based on it, and Jenkins will be connecting to that tool and it will run it. So that's how it is quite easy for automation. So that way you choose whatever plugin that you want to install on this Jenkins, and then here you choose like this, and after choosing you go ahead and try to install that plugin, and after installing you have to restart the Jenkins, because if you install a plugin, Jenkins will not directly know about it, so that only when you read or when you rerun the Jenkins, it will try to read all the plugin that is there, and then based on that it will be giving the option. So that is when, if you are installing a major kind of plugin, then you have to download and restart the Jenkins. But sometimes it is not possible for us to restart the Jenkins directly, because what will happen is there might be many users who are using Jenkins and there is some kind of job or a task which Jenkins is already running. So now when you go ahead and do a restart, what will happen? Jenkins will try to stop all that job, or it will terminate the job. So unnecessarily it will be failing. So that is when, if you want to install a plugin and restart, depending on when you want to do, you can either do it at the same time when there is no user working on it, you will do it directly. But in the production, many users will be using. So that is when we should not be restarting it immediately. Then you can think about choosing an option called install without restart, and later on you can decide when you want to restart Jenkins safely, so that you can set up something called as a downtime, where we will tell the users that you are going to restart Jenkins at this time, and that time make sure no one is working, and then go ahead and restart Jenkins, where on the restart all the corresponding plugins what you have installed will be appearing, and you can see the options based on that in the Jenkins homepage. Okay, so that's how you choose a plugin and install. If you go to the install tab, here you can see that whatever plugins that is being installed on your current Jenkins installation will be shown here. Okay, so that way here, when you have by default installed Jenkins, some plugins will come. So those plugins will not have an option to uninstall, because those are default plugin. You cannot uninstall. But all the additional plugins which we have installed based on our need will be having the uninstall option, so that now I can click and remove it whenever I don't want. If I want, I can go to the available tab and choose a particular plugin and install that. Okay, so that is how this is going to show you all the current plugin that is installed in our Jenkins. Then the update tab is going to show you on an existing plugin which we have installed on our machine, is there any newer version which is available, so that if you want to have some more additional options for the same plugin, then you can make sure you are updating your plugin. So choose it and then go ahead with download and install after restart, so that it will try to update the plugin to the latest version. For example, here, this plugin, what we have installed is 1.4, but what is available in the open source Jenkins market is 1.5. So if you want to update, just click on this and go ahead with the restart, so that after restarting, it will be upgrading this plugin to the latest version. So like that, you can choose what plugin that you want to install and update. Okay. So you will be doing this whenever you want to work on something. You have to first decide on what is the task you want to work, and correspondingly you will come and choose a plugin. Okay, so for example, so far we saw about Git and Maven, right? So now you have to make sure that that plugin is available. So in the latest version of Jenkins, Git and Maven will be coming as a default plugin. Okay, whereas if you are using any earlier or older version of plugin, then it will not be coming. So you have to come here and search for Git and then try to install those plugins. But as of with the latest version, Git and Maven comes as the default plugin. Okay, so just make sure that it is available here. So you can see there is no uninstall option, which means it comes along with the Git installation. Sorry, along with the Jenkins installation. That is this part. So here you can see that Git is one of the option. Okay, the same way Maven will also be installed as a plugin by default. Not the Maven, but the option for using Maven through Jenkins. Don't think that a plugin means you are going to install Maven or Git. What you are going to do is, using this Jenkins, if you want to connect to Git or Maven, you will get an option by installing this plugin. Okay, so once this is done, the next thing what we have to do is, we'll have to do the global system configuration. So for doing it, once again, go to Manage Jenkins and click on the Configure System. At any point of time, if you want to go to the home page of Jenkins, you can just click on this and it will take you where you can go to the Manage plugin Jenkins using this, or if you see, you will get a drop down, and if you can click, you will also get the same option here. So there are two ways that you can choose to go, so either on this or on this. So if you go to Configure System, and in this you will be having a lot of options. Once again, it is not necessary that we have to configure everything. Based on what we need, we are going to use only that. So that is why we call this as a framework, because you have all the options, and corresponding to a plugin that you have installed, that options will be additionally appearing here. Okay, so that's what we will be seeing it later. Now, in your case, if you do not see certain options, that means you have not installed particular plugin. Based on that, you will not be getting. But if not, there will be a standard set of default plugins. For that, you will be getting certain options. Okay, so the first thing that you see here is the home directory, which means this is the location where Jenkins is installed on your machine or this particular machine, and in that, all the files that it is going to store will be basically in this. So this is what we call it as the Jenkins home directory, or we also call it as a Jenkins home. Okay, then you see an option called system message. Now this is nothing but a place where you can give some kind of message which will be appearing for the user when he logs in to the Jenkins, that is the home page. So if I say, if I just give some message like this, and after doing any change, you can either save or apply. The difference between this is, if you want to do the change and continue doing the change, but you want to save it, then you say apply. So when I say apply, you can see it will get saved and it will be still in the same page. But if you say save, it will save and it will come out and it will not be in the same. Okay, so here you can see that whatever that message that I give, it is appearing here. Okay, so that's how make use of apply and save. Whether you want to continue something but save it, then apply. But if you want to save and come out completely, then you use save. Okay, then here, let's not worry about this or this, but let's come to this option here. So the next option that we are going to see here is a global option, in which the first thing that you're seeing is number of executors. What do you mean by number of executor? Now, if you recall, I was saying when you are trying to run some job, and if you have not told for a job which machine or node or client that it has to run, then Jenkins will use that job to run on the same machine where you have installed. So that way, at any given point of time, how many such jobs can be directly run on the master? That is what we call it as executor. Remember it? If you have a job which doesn't have any node to run, and if it is trying to run directly on the same machine where you have the Jenkins installed, so that kind of jobs, how many such jobs can you run on a machine directly is what we call it as number of executors. So you have to keep it as low as possible, so that we don't want many jobs running on our master. But for some emergency scenario, you can use the Jenkins master itself to run some task on it directly. So that way, number of executors is nothing but the number of jobs that you can run on a particular node or on your master directly. Okay, this is what it means. Then usage. So if you click on the usage, you have an option where do you want to directly use it as long as possible, or there is a concept called as label that I'll talk about a little later, whether you want to attach it to a particular name, only then you want to use. As of now, this is a master, so the master should be acting as a backup when if you don't specify any machine, then the job is going to come here. So I'm going to say use this as much as possible. Okay, so once you have given the executor and the usage, then quiet period. Quiet period is the number of seconds which Jenkins uses to keep silent before doing a task. So when you tell to Jenkins to run a task, immediately Jenkins will connect to the client or the node and execute this task. But if you give a quiet period, it will wait for that many seconds and then it will connect to the job, connect to the machine and run the job. Okay, so why do you need this quiet period? Sometimes we call it as a network latency. That is, when you're connecting from one machine to the other machine, there might be some network issue or it might be taking a longer time. So those kind of scenarios, you can use this so that you don't have to tell to Jenkins immediately connect, and when it is connecting, it might fail. So you can say that wait for so many seconds if you have a network latency in your organization. So based on that, Jenkins will wait and then try to connect to the machine and do the task. Okay, so that is when you will be using a quiet period. So if you don't want to use, just keep it 0 so that immediately when you say something to Jenkins, it will immediately connect to a node and run the job. Okay, that is what is quiet period. Next, SEM retry count. So going back to this concept, Jenkins was mainly created for helping us in continuous integration. But later on, because of its advantage, people started using it as an automation tool. But when you say continuous integration, what is the first task you are going to do? You are going to connect to a repository, right? So that way, once again, if your repository is in somewhere else like GitHub, and when Jenkins is trying to connect to your GitHub, if there is a problem and it connects or if it disconnects, then the job on which you are trying to connect will be marked as failed. So that is how, if you want Jenkins to retry the SCM steps, that is the Git steps, then you can give it here. 0 means don't retry. If you connect and if it is not connecting, and then fail. Suppose if I give it as 1, then what it will do, if Jenkins cannot connect to a SCM repository like Git, and then it will try to rerun the connection once again. So based on the number you give, it will try to reconnect as many times. And within that, if it is able to connect, then it will proceed with whatever steps that you wanted to do. Okay, so that's how you can tell Jenkins how many times that it wants to reconnect. So if you say 0, then it will try only once, and if it fails, then it will mark it as failed only. Okay, so that is what is the global configuration you will give. Then you have something called as global properties. Okay, so in this global properties, the first thing is environment variable. So if you click on this, in your case, you will not be seeing this. So if you click on add, it will give you a name and value which you can choose it. So now this is nothing but the exact environment variable that you have stored on your operating system or a machine directly. Same way, now if you have any specific environment variable that you want to set, you can set it here. So for example, when you are trying to install Maven, you need to set an environment variable called Java Home, M2 and M2 Home, right? So correspondingly, you set all those things here also, so that when you are trying to call Maven, Jenkins is going to call Maven. So Jenkins will try to connect to a machine and set all these environment variables which is needed for us to work. And based on this, it will be running Maven or any other tool. So that is how, whatever the environment variable that you are going to set on your machine here, whatever that you have set here, the same thing you are going to set it up here also. Okay, so create as many environment variables as you want and give the name and its corresponding value that Jenkins will be using it. So just click on add and you will get this, and you keep adding the value. Okay, so that is how you will be setting all the environment variable. Specifically in your case, give the Java Home, the M2 and the M2 Home correspondingly to what we have given in the Maven directly through the command prompt. Okay, so once you have set this environment variable, the next thing that you have to do is, if you scroll down a little bit, now once again, you will not be seeing all this option in your place, because as of now, you would have not installed any plugin related to SonarQube. So that is why, as soon as you see environment variables, immediately below that, you will be getting these options. Okay, so as you install the plugin, you will be getting this option correspondingly. So we will see when to use it later on. For now, after giving the environment variable, if you scroll down, you can see an option called Jenkins location. So this is where you will be telling how you are going to connect. So by default, since it is given it as localhost 8080, you are able to connect. Suppose if you want to change this port to some other port, then you change it here, and based on that, next time when you just save, if you want to go to the Jenkins homepage, it will always be going to this, or using this you will be connecting to the Jenkins. Okay, so this is where you define where you want to connect to Jenkins, or the port number to which you have to use for connecting to the Jenkins. So once you have specified this, the next thing that you are going to do is, if you scroll down a little bit, all these options will not be available in your place, but you will be having this. Now, if you are trying to perform any Git related operations, then do you remember on the first class I said you have to set certain configuration value, that is username and user email. Suppose if you want to perform some git command using Jenkins, then you can choose this box and give that value, so that when you invoke a git command, it will use these values, and based on that it will be trying to do a commit. Okay, so like that, with respect to each of the tool what you are installed, you will be getting some option based on which you can use a value. Again, as of now, we are not going to do any git commits, but we are just going to take some git commit. So that is how I'm not filling in. But in your production, if a developer wants to work, then specifically you will be giving it. But if not, we will not be filling it, because as a developer, he will be directly using a git bash command prompt or a git command line, and he will be trying to do a commit here. So that is when we will not be using. But specifically, if you have certain scenario, you can use this username and password. Using this only, it will be trying to store everything. Okay, and then finally you will be having an option called email notification, because when you are trying to use Jenkins, it will be trying to send an email for all different kind of tasks you are doing. That is, if you are trying to run a job, what exactly it is doing. In case if it is failing, it will send you an alert. So that way you will be getting an email notification for everything. So for doing it, how will Jenkins send a mail? So you need to tell something called as a simple mail transfer protocol server, or the SMTP is nothing but a server in which you will be having the mail configuration through which in an organization we will be able to send a mail. Okay, so every organization will have a mail server or a SMTP server using which you will be sending an email. So now you have to go to your IT administrator or the team who takes care of your IT infrastructure, ask them what is the mail server which we are using to communicate within the organization. So you take the name of the server and you keep it here. Okay, so that is how later on, if you want to send any email to a person using Jenkins, it will use this mail server and it will send it. Okay, and then the next one below that is called as email suffix. Now, if you see an email in a company, every person will have an email ID. For example, I will have my email like this, if this is my company. And if I have one more person, that person will have another email ID like this. So same way, every one of us will have a Gmail ID, right? So you will have some name at gmail.com. So when you go to an organization and when you're trying to set up a Jenkins job and you want to send an email to some person, this one will be common, because within a company, the email suffix, whatever that you're seeing, this is called as suffix. It is going to be the same with respect to the company. So that way, the only thing that you have to do is give the username alone. Okay, so that way, when you're actually trying to create a job and you want to send an email, you will just tell send email to Adam. But how does it know to which person you have to send? So you will give the email suffix here. So you will say here as vesva.com or your company name, whatever is there. So automatically, when you give a person's ID to send, it will append the person's ID with this email suffix and it will send, so that you don't have to give all the email completely. Suppose if you want to tell, you will just say send an email to this user, comma, this user or any other user I have, so that it will take it, append the suffix and send an email to that respective people. Okay, so that way this you will be doing in your organization, where you will specify the organization's email suffix here and the server using which you will be sending it. So these are the very basic things which is needed to get started. Once you have done, apply and save. Okay, so for now, try to do these changes, and tomorrow we will try to go through the node configuration and we will try to set up a job configuration. Okay, so we will try to do these two things, and then after that we will try to create different types of job and see how it will work, and then we will try to create continuous integration job, and as part of that we will try to see how we can connect from Jenkins to different kind of tools and you can execute it. Okay.